2023 has definitely already been quite a year for documentaries based around famous people and celebrities. We've had Judy Blume Forever, we've had still Michael J. Fox story, we've had Stan Lee, and now we have Rock Hudson, All That Heaven Allowed. This is an HBO documentary that is available on Max with audio description. And if you're not a subscriber yet, go ahead and click that subscribe button so we can get into this. I'm John Stark from MacMovieGuy.com. I'm a blind film critic, which is why I mentioned the audio description, so you get to learn a little something. I'm going to give a shout out right now to the narrator of the film, Roy Samuelson, and the team at Point 360 for doing their damnedest with this audio description. However, what I will say is it's a talking head documentary, so you're going to have a little bit of a problem figuring out who's talking and why they need to be talking. So, if you are interested, actually, I'll say that the IMDb page for this film, if you go specifically to Rock Hudson, All That Heaven Allowed, and look at the IMDb page, it does a great job of listing the people who are featured in the film. Not everybody necessarily speaks in an interview fashion about Rock. Some people are just featured in archival footage because they were in a movie with Rock, but it does actually say for a lot of the people who weren't necessarily famous why they were there. You know, so-and-so, Rock's friend, so-and-so, Rock's partner, so-and-so, you know, this person's partner. Just like it goes through the whole film and lets you know who actually is the conglomeration of people that are speaking. Unfortunately, it's an HBO documentary, so it kind of has like truncated credits at the end too, so it's not like we get read a whole bunch of names from people that are in there. So, what did I think about this documentary? Well, in addition to being a blind film critic, I'm also a gay film critic, so I guess I have the weight of the world on my shoulders. I think there's probably only one of me. There's probably only one blind gay film critic on YouTube. So what does he think? I don't know. Don't look at me. Yeah, it's an interesting documentary. I think it's really I think it's really interesting from the perspective of the fact that it depends on what you want out of it. This was released right at the end of Pride Month, so obviously it's meant to have a strong LGBT lean. But at the same time, it is named Rock Hudson, All That Heaven Allowed. So you do want a substantial amount of the film to be about Rock Hudson. And I kind of wanted a little bit more of Rock Hudson. I kind of wanted a little bit more and a little bit more honesty regarding Rock and his career and his wants and his desires. What film role did he want? You know, what did he go out for and he didn't get that he was really disappointed about? What was he in a film that was canceled that you know he was attached to and they took it away, gave it to somebody else? I don't know. Those are the kind of stories that I want to know also about Rock. It doesn't need to be all about his life as a gay man. You can include, they try to include some of it anyway. They include sort of like his growing up, you know, his parents, how he went away and fought in World War II and came back and was looking for work and slowly found his way into acting. It makes it sound a little bit like he was nonchalantly acting, you know, like he wasn't really doing anything, but he had shown some interest in acting when he was in high school, at least from the cursory that I've been able to do about him. Just selective research that I've known about Rock is that he was somebody who was interested in acting at one point. He may have drifted away from it because apparently he was not somebody who was very adept at it in the very beginning. But when he came out and met the right people, they noticed he was handsome, and back then we kind of manufactured stars. This isn't even his real name. So the fact that somebody just created Rock Hudson, they looked at a man and they said, yeah, he looks like he could be a matinee idol. Sure, we'll put him up on the silver screen, but we need a name for him that makes him sound like he's a leading man, Rock Hudson, and we learn about how he actually had to work on toning down his flamboyance. They talk a lot about how, they were moving away from sort of the little bit more effeminate men that were leading the films of the 1930s, and suddenly everybody wanted, I don't know, John Wayne. They all wanted these manly men coming out of the war, more muscular. I don't know when we didn't ever want that. I think maybe we just assumed that the other ones, because people were looking for actors when this first came out, I don't know. They were less concerned with, but they wanted to know if you could act in the beginning. So they were less concerned with looks. And then, even nowadays, we cast a lot of people based on looks, and you see people in films and you're like, well, we know why you're here. You're pretty. But now we can have it both. We have plenty of pretty people who can act, so it's a nice balance. And I think Rock, at least from the very little of Rock that I've seen, was a decent actor. This film treats him and actually directly compares him to Tom Cruise. I think that's an unfair comparison, and I kind of wish we had a little bit more realistic talk about where Rock Hudson actually was in Hollywood, because he was not Tom Cruise. He was not the biggest star of his time. And I know that people, when they talk about Rock Hudson, love to talk about him like he was. If you look at his film resume, he's not the biggest star of his time. He has a couple of hits that have stood the test of time, that he's remembered for. And he has a lot of films that only people who were alive at the time may remember. A lot of films that Turner Classic Movies, I think, doesn't even necessarily bother to show. His last credited role is in Dynasty. So he wound up and ended up just being a guest star on a TV soap. Of course, at that time, he was probably already HIV positive, and it was probably getting a little bit difficult for him to work. So it was an easy thing for him to do also. So it's fair for me to say that. Doesn't necessarily mean that his career dwindled out. When you look at like Audrey Hepburn's final couple film roles, it's really sad. Some of these people, the stuff that they were offered in the end, to think that Katharine Hepburn, one of her final film roles, is in the Flintstones, just, come on now. What are we doing to these stars? So, not Katharine Hepburn, sorry, Elizabeth Taylor. So I think they used Rock Hudson here as a vessel for talking about the concept of a gay actor through this golden era of cinema, and what it's like for an actor during this time period. The only reason why it's a Rock Hudson documentary is because he was the one that was open, he was the one that was out, he's the one that famously died of AIDS. There are several other actors who, of course, have been strongly rumored over the years, and I'm sure people would testify, I slept with so-and-so. I absolutely did read the biography written by the guy that worked at the gas station, and actually read the book before they even made the movie, which is why I'm having a hard time coming up with a name for both. But if you know what I'm talking about, then you know what I'm talking about. There was the guy that he just kind of like fell into having sex with a ridiculous amount of people and then wrote about it. And his book wasn't really challenged, and then they made a documentary about him and allowed him to talk more about his experiences. So there's an example of somebody who was able to talk about that era openly, and the actors he supposedly bedded. But I don't know that an entire documentary around one of those actors that wasn't Rock Hudson would have benefited. If this was Spencer Tracy, all that heaven allowed. I know it doesn't make any sense to keep that title, because that title is a reference to one of Rock Hudson's films. But if it was, I think maybe there would be more pushback, because Spencer never had a chance to come out himself. So this would be like pulling him out of the closet and forcing it. So there's also that play, and it's not necessarily cool within the LGBT community to just suddenly out somebody, especially post-mortem, who I guess uh, can't speak for themselves, or we're now speaking for them. It's all rumors and stuff, but I think there would be at least some pushback on that. So it's a lot easier to tell this story using Rock Hudson as a vessel, and that's okay. I didn't have a problem with that. Learning more about the personal life of Rock Hudson in addition. I just kind of felt like on the other side of it that there were more things I wanted to know about Rock Hudson, and I wanted a more honest portrayal of Rock. Stop telling me he's Tom Cruise, because he's not Tom Cruise. He's just not. They're not the same thing. They didn't have the same level of stardom. There can be more than one person who's referred to as being A-list. And then some of the A-list is kind of like a range and a scope. And it's possible that Rock Hudson was considered to be A-list. I concede that. But to try to say that he was the box office star of his time, like we have considered some people in the past, like when Will Smith used to, in the 90s, he had a string of movies that were putting him at the top. To say that he was having that moment, I think is a bit of a stretch. So there's a little bit of that I wish we had been a little bit more honest about. I kind of wanted to just know more about that, but that's because I'm a movie buff. So that's because I wanted to know more of the gossipy details of why he didn't get this role, or why he didn't get along with this star, or why this director didn't want to work with him, or he was best friends with this person. A little bit more of that, a little bit more of that Hollywood knowledge. If these people knew him so well, they should know all the answers to those questions. That, if you know somebody, you know them a little bit more than who they sleep with. That's just gossipy and rumor. You should know the other details too. You should know, remember the day that Rock was disappointed when he found out he didn't get cast in this film, when the role went to somebody else. And let's talk about that. How did he feel about that? Did he feel like he was turned away? Was he turned away because maybe there were too many rumors about him? I feel like there are just places that this documentary could have gone, but it just needed a vessel to be able to talk about how a gay actor maneuvered through Hollywood during this time period. And it does that by explaining that essentially he needed to be groomed into this idea of a masculine straight man, that that there was a guy who taught him how to drop all of his effeminate qualities and how to look and sound and talk the part, and you couldn't even laugh the wrong way and all that stuff. So because we have that, that's kind of where this documentary wants to keep its focus. So it is sort of the LGBT, through the lens of LGBT version of Rock Hudson, wanting to use him as a gay icon. But I think we could have had it both. I just question that, I think we could have had it both. I think there could have been more moments where somebody took a little bit more time, and even though it has nothing to do with him being gay, or maybe it did, maybe somebody wants to come in and say, I think he lost that role because the studio head knew who Rock was sleeping with and didn't want to give him the role. Say it, call it out. But instead, it's a really solid documentary in a year that we've had a lot of solid documentaries about celebrities. And this one is just, this is a good addition to the growing list. The audio description is tough because it's a talking head documentary, and there's somebody always talking. And Roy, he tries to interject whenever he can. A lot of times, what we get are film titles. We get the clips of films. He's able to say really quickly something like "Strange Bedfellows," and like the year that it came out. So, those are kind of the moments that we get. There's less of I think there's sort of this attitude with talking head documentaries that because you can't get all of the talking heads, that to get, to kind of, hit them a little bit here and here and here and here, to get like, only like 1 in 5 isn't necessarily always strong. So try to focus on some of the other things too that we can't see. It's always tough. These are always tough documentaries because they rely on constant talking. They rely on a narrative being driven by the people who are being interviewed. So with that, it's almost hard. It's almost impossible to interrupt the narration and get any audio description in. But the team at Point 360 they tried. They did an excellent job. So I can't. I always feel really bad begrudging because I don't know how to fix it. There's so many talking head documentaries that I don't know how to fix it. It's almost like we have to have some sort of like additional materials given to the blind community, like a little here's what's going to happen, and here are the people that are speaking. Like I told you have to go to IMDb if you want to know who these people are. So yeah, it's like we have to do a little bit additional work, but that's if you want to. If you don't, and you just want to listen to, and you don't really care who these people are, there's a narrative here. It's clear. It's concise. The documentary does not overstay its welcome, and if depending on how much rock you want, then you'll know. I definitely was surprised that somebody would just declare, the size of Rock's penis in the middle of the documentary. I didn't actually think we'd cover that. I feel like we were in the kind of documentary where it's like everybody's here to talk about, talk about him on like an elevated level. And I wasn't expecting the one guy to be like, he had a huge cock and I couldn't take it in my ass. And I was like, oh my God, why are you here? Like, what? This is so different. Your testimonial is so different from everybody else's. But, because everybody else is just, they're kind of, I think everybody else agreed to talk about like a certain level of things. And it's not this tawdry, like, Rock in the bedroom, he loved to do this. And like, nobody was trying to do that. And then this one guy is just like, by the way, I thought you should know. I was like, okay. Well, I'm glad we got that in there. At least everybody now knows. It has officially been said that we now know this about Rock Hudson. I'm glad that's officially on record now for him in his documentary. But I guess to the target audience, I'm sure there were people watching this that were like, please, somebody tell me, please talk about it. But anyway, it's a good documentary. It's not my favorite documentary of the year. I still think that there were ones that just have a better balance. And like Judy Bloom Forever, I guess, is my favorite so far still this year. So anyway, I'm going to give Rock Hudson All That Heaven Allowed an A-. I thought it was pretty good. My only qualm was just that I feel like there's just there's a tad bit more about Rock we could have gotten, and a little bit more honest about him not being Tom Cruise. he cannot be Tom Cruise and this still be a really important documentary. It doesn't. He can still be an A-lister and it still be important. He not. Don't try to tell me that he was the biggest star of his time, because he was not. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. I hope you give this a look-see. It's on Max. And give me a subscribe. I'm on YouTube. I'm also on my own website, MacTheMovieGuy.com. You can go to Twitter or Instagram and follow me at MacTheMovieGuy. You can go to the audio description project, adp.acb.org. It'll let you know what has audio description and where you can watch it. And you can go to TheADNA.org. That's TheADNA.org. And it'll let you know more about what kind of films Roy Samuelson's been narrating. You can type in his name, search him, and there you go. Anyway, that's it for me today. I will review something else for you guys, and see you on the other side.